Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll try to do this in 6 minutes, but Ms. Harrington will have a discussion here in a moment, but I want to let the chairwoman and the ranking member know about my concern about the MOX program. Back in the 1990s, under the Clinton administration, South Carolina agreed to accept 34 metric tons of plutonium, weapons-grade plutonium, in excess of our defense needs. There was an agreement negotiated between the Clinton administration and the Russian government where we would take 34 metric tons of plutonium in excess of our defense needs, weapon material, and the Russians would take 34 metric tons and we would dispose of it. We've been dealing with this issue for over a decade now, well over a decade. And the Obama administration comes along and they actually begin to build the MOX facility. And I'm sure you're aware of it because of Duke Power, but in case people are not, there's a technology that's been tested and it works where you can take weapons-grade plutonium, blend it down, and make commercial-grade fuel out of it. So you're taking a sword and making it a plowshare. And the MOX facility at Savannah River Site is somewhere toward halfway being completed. Last year, the statute that Senator Thurman wrote when he was in the Senate and I was in the House, because there was so much pushback in South Carolina about accepting this plutonium, the fear was we're going to hold this stuff and have no way forward. Well, guess what? Yucca Mountain shut down. So MOX gives you a way forward. It becomes commercial-grade fuel. But the statute we wrote back in the early part of this century, I believe, 2000, required a $100 million a year fine to DOE if they didn't stay on track. Well, last year they were off track in terms of the timetable, but I sat down with the Obama administration and said, listen, we don't want the $100 million, we want the MOX facility. And so we extended the time period for 2 years. I can assure you I would not have done that if I had known this year in the President's budget they would be suspending the MOX program for a study. We have studied this thing to death. It is now time to get on and getting it built. Ms. Harrington, we do have an agreement with the Russians regarding the 34 metric tons. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And in 2010, the agreement was amended to say that the disposition path would be MOX. Is that correct?
That is correct.
We rejected vitrification because if you're going to vitrify all of this stuff, we're not going to store it at Savannah River. We're not a storage site. So if we do something other than MOX, how can we meet our obligations under the treaty?
First, I'd like to clarify that in this assessment pause that we have included in the budget, MOX remains clearly on the table. It is not that we are disregarding MOX as a viable option.
I don't mean to be rude. You're a very smart lady. It's not on the table. It's the pathway forward. It's not subject to debate. I wouldn't have done anything I did last year if I thought there was one chance in a million that would be debating a year later whether or not MOX is the way to go. I don't want the $100 million. I want to get this stuff off the table in America and particularly in Russia, given the times in which we live in. So what I would suggest to you is that the $2 billion overrun concerns me too. I met with the Deputy Secretary of Energy, and here's what I'm willing to do. I'm willing to sit down with the Department of Energy and the contractor to try to get the cost down below $8 billion. Now, at Savannah River Site, the pit disassembly facility was going to be a third separate building. This is where you take the pit out of the warhead, and that's what's blended down into MOX fuel. It's the plutonium bullet. We were able to avoid building that facility and save $2 billion right there. Over the past decade, Savannah River Site has been very forward-leaning when it comes to saving money in a responsible manner. We've got 54 tanks full of Cold War residual material, high-level toxic waste. And we agreed back in 2002, I believe it was, to leave a portion of the waste in the bottom of the tank, in the heel of the tank, rather than scraping it all out, and that saved $16 billion. We thought we could close the tanks up with some high-level waste that would be treated and that saved $16 billion. So, Ms. Harrington, we in South Carolina and Georgia have tried to be good stewards of the taxpayer money, and I'm just here to tell you that I will work with the administration. I talked to Dennis McDonough about this last night to get the cost down, but I will not entertain for 1 minute a disposition plan other than MOX. We're halfway through. There is no other way to do it. We have an agreement with the Russians, and now is not the time to break that agreement given the world in which we live in, and is surely not the time to break faith with the people of South Carolina and Georgia. So when it comes to lowering cost, count me in. When it comes to studying another way to do it, count me out. Have a good day.